Welcome to the Hole in the Wall Business Podcast with Bill and James. I'm James Groves, and along with my business partner, Bill Dement, we want to share our journey as small business owners with you. As owners of Hole in the Wall drywall repair, we will attempt to peel back the curtain of owning a small business in the trade service industry and talk about the many adventures of owning a small business. Hey, Bill.
James, good morning to you.
Good morning. We have a returning guest, someone who's not been on in a long time.
Yep.
We're recording episode 60
Although we see
today.
him a lot.
I see him a lot.
You see him a lot.
You see him in public.
And I saw him recently at a trade event.
You see him in the wild.
Yes.
Yes. And but he came on, he was on episode 25, so we got to hear all about him and his story back then, but we wanted to have him back to kind of bring us up to date. And so I'd love to introduce our good friend, mine and yours, from Lamonte G Photography, Lamonte Gwynn. Welcome, Lamonte.
Thank you for having me back on the show. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So I do want to start by saying it was so cool to see Bill and his daughter at the EEOC event.
Yeah.
Because the pride, when I tell you, I don't even, I can't, like the space, how big his head was and how his chest stood out, talking about his daughter.
I'll have to watch that in the future.
He was just, I was like, now that is the look of a proud dad.
Hey, that's after a 23-year investment so far. All right, so yes, she's quite something, actually.
She's pretty incredible. She was just on the podcast like a couple weeks ago, too.
Yeah.
Her and some Gen Z. We learned all about Gen Z.
The Gen Zs.
Yeah.
All about Gen. She's writing a blog post for us, too. So.
Yes, she is.
Yeah, very cool.
It was so cool because you were just so proud. I loved it.
You know what? I am proud of my kids, and we've put a lot of work in with them, but they've responded to it. Our goal always has been to release good citizens upon the world, and I think we're well on our way.
Oh, yeah.
Beautiful.
She certainly is.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So, been a minute since we caught up with you. Mm-hmm. Tell us kind of what's going on with you.
Yeah, fill us in. I mean, obviously, maybe do a quick recap for what you do, so those who didn't listen to 25, although I recommend go back and listen to it. Catch us up.
So I'm an expression coach. What that means is I get people into a mental state in order for them to take amazing pictures. My experience with photography, when I look at a photo, is not just a visual experience. And subconsciously, that's just how we work, right? And so I've been working for the last, let's say, 8 years, just really honing in on getting people into a state very quickly so they can take really great photos. And since the last time we've talked, I think I found the holy grail of expression.
Really?
Yes. And it's really about taking people, because what I used to do was use memory as a way to get people in feeling.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
And so I have this one photo in my pre-shoot guide that I show people when they come in, where there was the gentleman who I went to his office, and when I took 200 pictures, nothing worked. And he knew it, and he said, "Can I come to your studio?" We went to the studio. I started having a conversation with him, and I asked him about his wife.
Okay.
And he just melted. And the photo and the smile was a representation of how he felt about his wife.
So you found the key that fit that lock, didn't you?
Yep. But here's the thing. That memory, it just didn't have that bite to it, because what I like to do with a photo, much like you, James, when you cook, you infuse a certain amount of love into your food.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And people
Along with a lot of smoke.
and people can take it. I mean, can taste it. It's the same way with a photo. What my goal is to infuse an energy into the photo.
Okay.
So if I can take a person to a place of creation, if I can take a person to a place of seeing the future now and creating it and encapsulating that look into a photo, it's magic.
And so you're capturing all of this ideal in the expression coach.
Yeah.
Now, is that something, I'm curious, is that something you came up with on your own, or have you heard that out in your trade somewhere?
So here's the interesting part. When I came up, well, it was me and someone else came up with the idea. We were tossing ideas around. I did a Google search.
Yeah.
I did a LinkedIn search. It was not out there.
Okay.
If you go now and do Expression Coach and look at the photographers that use it, they are of the same club.
Okay.
But the interesting part is I know what I do has a little bit of magic to it.
Yeah.
I recently had a client in the studio, and he was talking about his daughter is a gymnast in gymnastics. And so what I did was I took him to the state finals. She's done the all around. She's got to stick this one landing, and when she sticks the landing, she wins. And
Oh, you're good. That's really good.
the smile that
can
came
see.
up on his face.
Yeah, I'm
bam,
sure.
got it.
Yes.
I came in.
Wow, that's really good.
His appointment was at 10 o'clock. By 10:10, we were done.
Wow.
Just very different. I actually got chills now.
I did too, actually. That's
Yeah.
neat. Because what I love about it is like in the wild, in our day-to-day life, we have facial expressions. We don't look at ourselves in the mirror very often.
Right.
That's what makes really good actors really good, because they practice in the mirror, and good motivational speakers. But when you go to a mental place that invokes an emotion that is special, you don't know what you're looking like.
Right.
But that enthusiasm, that exuberance on your face is going to be the best pictures. I've seen some great stuff that you've done with just some humdrum people, including myself and Bill,
Yeah.
that turned out way better.
Yeah. In our journey, I think many of us don't spend the time that we really need to get into a positive space. I think so many people are in such a go, go, go state in life that to have a moment to create what you see for yourself. This is my heart work because I've had so many struggles. And the one thing that saves me is I keep looking to the future. So if I can instill this in other people and help them to see a better future for themselves.
Yeah, just touch that same chord in them, right?
Yeah. I think that I made a difference in people's lives.
Yeah. That's actually one thing that we've been talking about several weeks. I think with Marcos last week, that the go, 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 go is really cultural.
Yeah.
And I know you've shared many times about your experiences living in Africa, how it's just a different culture and a different speed. But boy, I think the fact that you can get someone to slow down enough to even consider, what these feelings that you're talking about, because we just kind of gloss over them in American culture. It's just like, I got to get on. My wife and I have a term for it. It's called, okay, that's done. Now off to the next activity.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's really interesting is when I ask someone, where do you see yourself in 5 years? It's not an automatic response. People literally have to say, wow, I haven't thought about that.
Yeah, people just don't slow down to do it. And that happens by intent. You have to be very intentional about that.
Yeah. We live in a world that's fighting for attention. Every brand out there is fighting for your attention to keep people focused on that instead of looking inward.
Yeah, that's really good. You've obviously thought about this pretty deeply.
Yeah. And so because there's so many forces out there fighting for our attention, people are distracted. And the real energy is the inward work so that I can be a better person. And the more people that do the inner work, to go inward, to look, to think, to set in the positivity of where I see myself. The Bible, Neville Goddard, Earl Nightingale, and Napoleon Hill, they all say the same thing. you think. You become what you think about. You become what you think about. And a lot of the noise that's out there are creating people who are becoming just what these forces are putting in their face.
Yeah, and it's all day, it's every day, all day long.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. So you're raising this awareness in people you're working with, what you're talking about here. How did you come to that, and how do you get to that space in your own life on a daily basis? Or do you? Is this just something you visit occasionally?
So how did I come up with this? It's because I am a practicer of self-development, of looking inward, because I know that I'm not perfect. And the more internal work that I can do, the more better days that I can have than days when I'm thinking about things that don't serve me.
So is this sort of a daily regimen for you?
Yeah, it's a routine. It's a routine.
Yeah.
It started when I was literally in a transitional housing program. I had to do a lot of inner work and write in the journal all the I am statements and write in the journal all of the gratitude statements. And that started a process that I had never done before, but to be where I'm at just 5 years later.
Yeah, it's impressive.
To have a car repossessed with a balance of $29,000 on it, to go through a money coaching program to work on my money traumas, to call the company because I'm going to do debt consolidation to find out that all I have to pay on this car is $1,184. To pay it off, to be able to get a car again, build my credit again. That is work. And it's not just outside work. It's inner work.
Yes.
It's inner work. And the more inner work that we do, we respond differently to people. This inner work has really helped me tune down negativity and really turn up positivity.
It does make a difference, doesn't it?
Yeah. And so how did I come up with it? Through practice.
Okay.
And then I started applying this work, inner work that I've been doing, into my work, because it is a part of who I am. And so when I first started my business, I had no idea what I was doing. 14 years later, I feel like I'm in a space that I love, and that when people walk out of the experience, they are changed.
Yeah.
Even if it's just for that moment, but when they look back at that photo, they'll always remember the experience.
No, that's a true statement. I identify with that.
Absolutely.
Having been through some of the process with you.
And having it's not just a photo, right? I mean, I'm sure you have plenty of examples, but I know that we've had photos and headshots. I've had, and then usually it's a spouse taking them, or hey, let's go to the backyard and take a picture. And a lot of people are using those pictures in everyday life, and even for their businesses. But once we had your shots back, there was basically three poses: one of us together, one in work shirts, and one in their suit. Every one of them was different, and every one of them has a different place in our business. It's really helped us create kind of our brand,
right?
Yeah.
Not just the company brand.
Yeah,
it's kind of like our brand.
Yeah.
Maybe you have an example of just how people have taken the work that you've done, and it's kind of turned into their visibility, their magic.
So I recently had a gentleman who came in. Well, it wasn't recent. It was about the beginning of the year. He came in and we did this work. And I asked him, "What do you want? Like, if you got the most exciting thing for business that you could not believe you got it, what would it be? And he put a number on it. And I said, let's add 200,000 to it. So recently he had posted on LinkedIn about this really big opportunity. Now, I don't know if it brought the dollar amount, but I know that he's in a space that he's wanted to be in.
Yeah, and he's certainly trending the right way.
Exactly. And so what I'm finding is a lot of people, they want to do their business without being visible. And it's really, think about it. You guys are franchising, right?
Yes.
So in order to franchise, you have to have a level of visibility where people get to know you.
It's an important part.
Yeah, and trust you. And so regardless if you're franchising or not, that visibility is important. And so right now, personally for me, I'm doing a lot of content creation in the background now. I haven't posted on social media in about 3 months. And I know the algorithm is going to look at me like, who are you? But I realized that creating content real time and posting it while running a business is so difficult. It can be challenging to have to set up your camera. And I did that. I did it for like 11 days straight. And I spent like 4 hours each time trying to get it perfect. And I realized that when I sit with my clients, I don't have a script. Why am I trying to script this?
There you go.
All I need to do is look at the camera and respond as if I'm asking a question. I mean, if I've been asked a question.
Okay.
So what I'm doing now regarding photography and video is really helping people become visible, helping them create a library of content that they can actually produce very quickly. We're creating a system to get people to produce a massive amount of content over a short period of time. It's a lot of work.
It is that.
It's going to be a lot of work. But by the end of it, you'll have a library and all it now needs is to upload and press play. And in the interim, while you're posting all of that content, we're going to teach you how to use your camera on a daily basis to capture more content, to make it very simple and easy so that you don't have to have someone follow you around. And if you have the budget for it, you can do that. But there's some simple things that any entrepreneur can do to capture content very easily to keep that going. So once you have the library, now it's just you are posting things that you did months ago, but that's fine. Nobody needs to know your actual moves. And you know, it doesn't have to be real time. It's not that, but it's content. And the biggest C, it's consistent, because that's the people who win.
Yeah.
It's got to be consistent.
Yeah, you just have to keep it. We actually were talking about this story recently. Don't stop a foot short. Remember that one? There's a gold miner who had a gold claim, and he dug and dug and dug. He invested. He finally just burned out on it. He went to town. He sold the deed to somebody else. The guy came and dug a foot deeper and hit gold.
Yep, it's five.
But the consistency, beyond the emotion, beyond the psychological barriers, is really where the success lies.
Yeah.
Well, listen, we know that every post that you have isn't going to be seen by everybody all the time.
Right.
Right. And unless you just live on your phone, which a lot of people do, but even still, if you post 3 times a week, your posts aren't going to get seen by everybody at all times. So you have to provide some content without content overload, because content overload is key. If you're posting 3-4 times a day, people are literally going to scroll right by you because they don't have time for that.
Right.
But if you're posting quality stuff on a consistent basis, that's one thing. But if they've never seen you or hear from you, you don't have anything to say to them.
Right.
They don't see you as much, and their algorithm probably won't put you to the top of their list.
Right.
And frankly, if I'm looking at somebody, I go to their social media page, and if it's a business and all of their stuff is written words, if it's photos of static things that aren't work that they do, it's kind of like, stuff that you can do on ChatGPT and all the AI stuff. I'm not engaged. If I don't even know who the person is, if I look at your post, and a lot of trades guys do that. They'll just kind of go in, they'll post, I'm such and such handyman, and they're posting a few things every now and then.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the Happy Labor Day post.
Yeah.
With a flag.
With a flag.
Right.
I don't think they're as effective. And I think that if you can personalize it a little bit, even if you're not the company, like if you're just a person in the company, but even behind the scenes sneak peeks, even if, like for us, it's before and after pictures, it's time lapse, it's training video, all these things that we're trying to do on the back end. And even then, I feel like we could even ramp up our stuff even a little bit more. But this sounds like it's different. It's in addition to what you were doing before. I mean, before you were just kind of doing photos and headshots. Right. Now you're kind of offering a different package. Yeah.
So in this whole idea of creating the future now, a lot of people they hate the camera, whether it's video or photo.
I find that common to people. They don't like the sound of their own voice, and they don't like the way they look on camera.
Yep.
That's really common.
Yeah. And what I've realized is that my technique works both in photo and video.
Do you have a name for this process? I mean, do you call it something when you pitch it to someone?
I just keep it as expression coaching because
it just falls under that.
Yeah, it's an expression of who you are. It's an expression of who you want to be. Okay. It's an expression of where you see yourself in the future. And
it's an interesting concept.
Nobody is ever going to say, 5 years from now, I see myself with a broken leg and no food on the table, and
hopefully
homeless.
I can be in jail.
Right. Nobody's ever going to create that outcome in a session like that. They're only going to think about the most positive outcomes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
that's true.
If I have a person who is camera shy, they don't want to be a part of the camera, we're just changing the mindset. It's not about you recording from a space of fear. It's about you recording from a space of seeing the results. Mm-hmm. You're actually speaking to the results of the people and seeing the benefit that they get.
So, and how long have you been doing this process now?
This is so the brand visibility part is something that I'm launching.
Okay.
The express, it has revolutionized over 14 years. It's changed.
Sure, of course.
I've always because I want to get deeper, and I want to be able to get people. My goal is to be able to get people in the state very quickly. When I first started photography, there was this big warm-up period. Meeting somebody for the first time. I'm an introvert. Now I got to meet somebody, and we got to do this dance of kind of getting to know each other. And it was just this awkward 30 minutes until I relaxed enough to get them relaxed enough.
Yep.
I had to change that.
Mm-hmm. And you made a conscious effort to do that too, didn't you?
Yeah.
So what were the steps you took to do that?
I don't know, Bill.
So it just evolved into what it is?
It just evolved. It's a part, I'm going to be honest, it's a part of just going quiet and being still and allowing the answer to come. A part of it, I think, is doing the internal, it's the spiritual work. It's a spiritual element to it.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I can remember as a young 18, 20-year-old, I was a very quiet, very shy person. And I realized that wasn't the best for me. Mm-hmm. And so I was pretty intentional. First of all, step one for me was recognizing that as something I didn't want to be just this quiet, introverted person all my life. And so I was very intentional about making changes to move into a direction to be a little more, a little warmer, a little more engaging with people.
Ready to start your own business? How would you like a jumpstart? Hole-in-the-Wall Drywall Repair is now offering franchise opportunities for strong entrepreneurs. When you franchise with Hole-in-the-Wall, we help you get up, running, and ready to start generating revenue fast. You get access to our comprehensive training program, continued support, and our proven business model that has allowed us to experience explosive growth. Achieve financial success while providing a valuable service to your community. Take the first steps towards achieving your entrepreneurial dreams. Go to holeinthewallfranchising.com. So you've been doing this for 14 years. You are still obviously evolving and perfecting and just honing your craft. I've seen you grow just in the few years that I've known you, and it's pretty amazing. But going through business like we all do, we're not perfect.
Exactly.
And I'm curious, what do you do when you have an issue? I mean, what kind of warranty? What for us, it's warranty. You know, for you, it's just, I guess it's just your time and picture. So maybe you have a story or anything you can talk about?
Dude, I have a lot of stories.
Oh.
So it was so interesting. So I've talked about the drug addiction issue. It's really interesting to navigate running a business and being addicted, because there were times when I was living in Baltimore, my clients would be literally at the studio and I would be home.
Uh-oh.
Whoops.
But I've always learned how to be honest about the mistake and then rectify it, to take responsibility and now say, how can I make this better? Because for me, what I've got going on in the background has nothing to do with the client.
Right.
Yes. And it shouldn't interfere with the service you're going to provide.
Exactly. So it was, what do I need to do to make this experience right for you? And having that real, honest conversation. Recently, now, those issues don't come up today with me and my clients.
Sure.
But I recently went to an office, and so interesting. The guy who was the owner of the business reminded me of an old boss from New York. It was so uncanny. Like, even the way he spoke to me was in the same demeanor. It was like this guy it was the weirdest experience, and it knocked me off my game. Like, I'm looking at this guy, and it was beyond belief. I got home, I looked at the photos, and I said, these are horrible. I was not on my game. So I contacted the client, I sent him an email, and I said, listen, I don't think I showed up the right way. And I need to come and do a redo. And he says, well, what was the issue? And I said, in all honesty, I wasn't in the right headspace. And because I wasn't in the right headspace, I didn't serve you at my highest capacity. I know we can get better photos. And I'm not going to, of course, there's no charge for it. I know it's a time element. And if you have the time, I'd love to come in and reshoot some of these. And he agreed. And when you look at the difference, it's amazing.
But you're not a machine. Right. I mean,
none of us are.
You're not hanging drywall. You're not punching a clock. You're an artist.
Right.
Yes.
Right. You're somebody who creates, and when you're creative, there's an element of headspace that there has to be. You have to be, as we'll say, in the spirit or in the mood or in the zone.
Yeah.
Right. So when you're playing sports, you've got to be in that zone. When you're knocked off your game, it's absolutely possible that you're not going to produce your best results.
Yeah.
But what I like is that you notice that, and you're like, you know what, this was just not my best performance, and I want to provide a better service for my client.
Yeah.
This is what makes a great entrepreneur, a great business owner, because you can provide subpar work and get away with it for a little while.
Yeah.
But your reputation is really the last thing you did.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And James, I'll tell you, I used to tell my kids all the time when they were small The reputation you have is the one you've earned, good or bad.
The amazing part is if you Google Lamonte G Photography, you will see 5 stars.
Nice.
You will not see a complaint. Did people have a reason to complain? Yeah, I admit that. But it's not in the mistake. It's really in the solution.
Well, and that speaks to quality of character right there.
Yeah.
Standing behind what you do.
Yeah. So that's what I love. I just had a client call me just before this podcast and said, of the photos that you took, one of them, in about half of them, my collar is in, and I'm mortified.
Oh no.
I'm mortified. I am mortified. And she says, you should have caught that. And I'm like,
Yep.
You're right.
You're right. You're right. She says, but dude, we all make mistakes.
Don't we all?
She says, I make mistakes on a daily basis. So how are we going to resolve this? And so there were 3 options. And it's a simple, take the collar from one shirt and put it, I'll be able to do it in retouching.
Oh yeah.
And so I know and she said to me, you'll probably never miss a collar ever again.
It's probably true.
But we had a rapport that we built during her session. And I think that rapport and who she is, because she was I think she did a cartwheel or something. She flipped her hair down and flipped it back. And she came outside, she did a kick.
How dramatic.
She came a kick. And
we didn't get to do any of that, did we?
Oh, I'm fresh out of cartwheels these days.
Yeah.
And so
I've aged out of those as well.
she was really cool. And she's right. And I had to admit that. You're right. I should have caught that. And we're gonna make this right.
Yeah.
And so that's just a part of the entrepreneurial journey. I think the more we when people try to get over and they don't admit to just, hey, I made a mistake here. How are we going to fix this? It's really about, like I said before, the resolution. How do we resolve it?
Yeah, because running from it isn't helpful to anyone.
Right. And putting it back on the other person either.
That's even worse.
Yeah.
It is. So I want to ask you a question really quick and refer back to something that you said earlier in the podcast today during our conversation, that you like to ask people, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I'd like to kind of pry you open a little bit and see what you're thinking is going to be going on in your life 5 years from now. What does that look like?
5 years from now, I will be a multi-million-dollar business owner, helping people on various levels. I see myself writing a book. I see myself helping people. There's so many people who are afraid of the future. They see what's going on. And there's a collective consciousness. And I believe there's a collective consciousness. And the more we tune the collective consciousness to positivity and a better world, we'll be able to create it. And so that's the space that I want to be in, and continue to build my photography, my brand, to really get people visible, to feel comfortable in their skin, and to really take whatever they're doing that they love to do and talk about it from a very heart space.
So that leads into kind of like, what's the next steps? What's on the horizon just in the next 6 months to a year for you?
A lot of work. I'm starting a new podcast.
Yeah, one of the things that James and I have established between ourselves over the years, and I've always kind of been this way, but it's not enough just to have a dream. It's not enough just to have a vision, and you have to put legs to it.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of energy. Listen, I love dreaming. I can come up with enough ideas for any half a dozen people, but putting legs to the really good ones, and the saying we have around here, these things don't happen because they slide downhill from gravity. They happen because somebody puts their shoulder against it and pushes it up the hill.
Yeah.
And that's how they happen.
Yeah, execution.
Yeah.
Another thing for me is creating the systems in order to build it. Build it.
I totally identify with that.
Yeah, so when you showed me your Trainual, when you showed me that was crazy. I was like, wow. So, and I've actually told somebody about that. Right now, I have a coach that's helping me get those systems in place, so that one, I can be accountable. It keeps me,
on track.
On track. But he's such a brilliant coach, because he's been in the military and he's been doing this work throughout his career. And so he's just using it as a coach now. And so we're getting the systems in place. And then the solopreneur thing just doesn't, if I was to go out here today and die, my business would die.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I am looking beyond solopreneur. I think as photographers, those who are in the industry need to start collaborating and working together. But you have to build the systems in order for it to be sustainable. And that's what I'm working on now. So in the next 3 to 6 months, that's a lot of the work that I'm doing.
That'll be an interesting story to follow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's difficult when the name of your company is your name, right? So,
Wells Fargo is a name.
Yeah, it's true. But I was very conscious of that in naming Hole in the Wall and not Bill's Drywall.
Okay.
Just because I always had a bigger vision.
Nice.
But it has to start with that. You have to create everything twice, right? Once in your mind and then once with your hands. Everything has to be created twice.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's wrap it up, Lamont. Tell our audience, if they want to get a hold of you and your brilliant mind and want to talk to you or use your services, how can they get a hold of you?
I can get my number?
Sure.
Reach me at 443-630-5355. My website is www.lamontgphotography.com. In Lamonte G Photography, you can Google me, and you can see me on Instagram and Facebook.
There you go.
Or you can certainly reach him through us here at the podcast.
Absolutely. That's great. And then do me a favor, send me your Instagram handle, and I'll put that all in the liner notes for you, too, so people can get a hold of you. Well, Lamont, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for stopping by today. Great conversation.
Thank you.
Great pleasure.
Nice catching up.
And listen, thanks, everyone, for listening. It was a great show. We'd like to thank you for listening to the Hole in the Wall Business Podcast with Bill and James. We'd love for you to join our Facebook group and keep the conversation going. If you'd like to learn more about us and our business, check us out at holeinthewall.com. If you'd like to learn more about how to start a Hole in the Wall franchise, go to holeinthewallfranchising.com.